conversations in the state legislature, is that it's opening the door to legislation that will make it harder to vote. That's a very dangerous path for this state with a history of voter suppression to go down, to make it mainstream to legislate laws that make it harder to vote. I'll repeat my remarks in Spanish. El proyecto de ley que ha pasado la Cámara de Representantes de Texas hace unos momentos está basado en una mentira que destruye nuestra democracia americana desde adentro. Es la mentira que el fraude electoral masivo existe en este estado y en este país. Cada vez que se repite esa mentira, cada vez que pasan políticas públicas basadas en esa mentira, se debilita nuestra democracia. Le quiero dar las gracias a los legisladores que trabajaron toda la noche para intentar luchar contra ese proyecto de ley, que lograron algunos cambios. Pero también quiero recordarle a todos que en este estado, con una historia de suprimir el voto, en este estado el hecho de que se haga aceptable el pasar proyectos de ley que hacen el voto más difícil es un camino muy, muy peligroso. I'll take questions.
Judge, I'd like to start. You mentioned that the lawmakers worked deep into the night to what I believe you referred to as to temper some of the more dangerous provisions of the bill. What were these provisions and what changes do these amendments make?
Lawmakers were working, for example, to try and decriminalize some of the provisions that these bills are trying to enact. For example, the House Bill 6 criminalizes activities that local elections officials have to engage in just through the course of the election, like providing information to people about mail ballot voting. I say they were able to temper some provisions because a lot of bad remains. Still, these bills would allow, the bill that passed the House would allow poll watchers to video record voters. Still, it would be a problem for poll workers to intervene. Remember, this is just the House bill. There is a Senate bill that would end 24-hour voting, that would end drive-through voting, that would mean that we have to shift voting locations from minority areas outside of those minority areas. That would lead to long lines. Now, this was all done in the middle of the night. It's commendable that legislators were willing to fight in the middle of the night, but really it shouldn't be happening in the middle of the night. To pass a voter suppression bill at 3 in the morning just shows you that there is nothing elegant, there is nothing appropriate about how you remove the right to vote from people, how you make it harder to vote. Now, these bills are, unless the Senate accepts what the House has passed, which is very unlikely, these bills are going to head to what is called a conference committee. The conference committee is not a public process. It simply means that legislators from the Senate and from the House are going to negotiate behind closed doors. So this voter suppression bill has passed in the middle of the night, and the next step are negotiations behind closed doors. It is time, it is not too late, and it is time for leaders in all communities, but particularly in this community, which is being singled out by these bills, to stand up against voter suppression and stand up for democracy.
Okay. You mentioned a few things that you're upset about. What most upsets you about what would be in this bill?
I struggled to select something because what is upsetting about these bills are just the fact that legislation is being passed based on a lie that weakens our democracy. When you are saying the massive voter fraud exists, something that has been debunked time and time again, and you are passing legislation based on that, you're weakening the very fabric of our democracy. sometimes legislators exaggerate here or there, politicians exaggerate here or there to make a point when they want to advance their agenda on taxes or their agenda on transportation or their agenda on immigration. But we can't peddle lies when it comes to democracy, to the ability to vote. So anything that is done in the name of tackling a voter fraud that doesn't exist is dangerous for democracy. The provision themselves are problematic, whether it's recording voters, whether it's limiting mail ballot information, whether it's stopping drive-through voting, whatever it is, it's all bad. It makes it harder to vote. But the bigger point is we should not tolerate this kind of legislation in this country nor in this state.
You said the fight is not over. What tools, if any, does the county have to fight back against the changes in these bills if they become law?
We have many tools. We have 5 million people. We have countless business leaders. We have major businesses that have already spoken up. These legislators that are trying to promote voter suppression bills, they know, as well as we know, that there was no massive voter fraud. They know. And so the more leaders, particularly business leaders, because of course they control their political contributions, particularly business leaders, are able to say to these legislators, hey, stop with the lies. This is about democracy. Find that courage. We can beat this. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. This heads back to the Senate. If the Senate doesn't accept it, which it likely will not, it'll go to conference committee, and the pressure needs to continue because these bills are passing legislatures all throughout the country at a time 50 years after we thought we were done with this fight, after we thought we were done with fighting for voting rights for everybody. So it's important for everybody to step up around in the state, but it's particularly important for folks and leaders in Harris County to step up because the bills in many ways target us. They target counties with over 1 million people, and they target the innovations that we created in Harris County that voters of both parties used, that voters of both parties loved, that yielded no evidence of voter fraud whatsoever.
My last question, Judge. Do you feel like these bills are particularly targeting Harris County?
Absolutely. It's very clear that these bills are targeting Harris County. They're targeting all Texans because they're making it harder to vote. But they're targeting minorities and leading polling locations to be moved away from minority areas. They're targeting urban areas when we say, when you're leading to more lines at polling locations. They're targeting Harris County specifically when they try to get rid of drive-through voting and 24-hour voting. Most importantly, they're targeting democracy when they make policy based on a lie that there's voter fraud. They're touching something that should be out of bounds, out of reach of politics, and that is democracy itself.
Thank you, Judge. That's my last question.
I have some questions. I'm going to ask them in English if you could answer them in Spanish. Concerning voting, what is some of the feedback that you have received from local corporations in terms of actions that they may take if this becomes a bill?
Este proyecto de ley pasó a las 3 de la mañana. No hay nada elegante del hecho de que haya pasado esto a las 3 de la mañana, especialmente un proyecto de ley que es acerca de hacer más difícil el acceso al voto. Ahora, este proyecto de ley irá al Senado, a menos de que el Senado acepte el plan, lo cual es prácticamente imposible, se creará un comité de conferencia. Ese comité de conferencia no se reúne en un foro público, simplemente significa que representantes del Senado estatal y la Cámara estatal van a negociar tras puerta cerrada. Entonces, ahora es realmente el momento de la batalla, donde están las negociaciones tras puerta cerrada antes de que puedan pasar estas leyes. Es el momento en el cual todos los líderes de la comunidad deben estar llamando a estos legisladores y recordándoles que siempre hay política, hay exageraciones en todo tema, migración, impuestos, transporte, pero en el tema de la democracia no podemos legislar basado en mentiras. No ha habido fraude electoral alguno, no podemos debilitar la democracia. Hay líderes de negocios que están hablando, que han luchado por tomar una posición, negocios muy grandes como Microsoft, como American Airlines, líderes aquí locales que le han pedido a la Cámara de Comercio que tome una posición. Les llamo a todos ellos que sigan empujando. Los líderes de las grandes compañías de negocios son los que más pueden influir a esos legisladores y recordarles que ellos saben que no hay fraude electoral, que no pueden simplemente tratar el tema de la democracia como un tema político cualquiera.
And the question that he asked, you could answer in Spanish. How do you feel that this bill is specifically targeting Harris County?
Es muy claro que este proyecto de ley ataca específicamente al condado Harris, porque elimina las innovaciones que establecimos el año pasado, que votantes de ambos partidos utilizaron. Específicamente, por ejemplo, ahorita en mayo, fueron los votantes de un área predominantemente republicano que utilizaron el voto por autoservicio. Además, sabemos que en estas innovaciones no se ha identificado fraude alguno, pero las están atacando. También están atacando las áreas urbanas. Muchas de las provisiones de estos proyectos de ley simplemente aplican a las áreas con más de 1 millón de residentes, 1 millón de habitantes, somos nosotros. Además, cuando intentan mover sedes de votación fuera de comunidades minorías, cuando pasan provisiones que van a crear líneas más largas, todo eso influye más que nada en áreas urbanas como las nuestras, donde simplemente hay más gente. Entonces eso nos impacta más. No podemos permitir que un tema tan vital como la democracia, el voto, se vuelva algo político.
Okay, my last question is about the police funding bill passed today, HB 1900. What is your stand on that bill?
Realmente he estado completamente enfocada toda la noche en el proyecto de ley de voto, entonces por ahora no tengo comentarios en ese.
Judge, one last question in English, please, before you go. Can you answer the first question that you answered in Spanish concerning the businesses, their reaction to the possible law bill?
We have heard from a lot of businesses, powerful businesses, Microsoft, American Airlines, some of the largest corporations coming out, speaking out against these bills. And it's important because they know democracy is important, but they also know that these bills threaten our economic prosperity. I'm very concerned seeing the different sporting events pulling out of voter suppressing states, knowing that we're trying to bring the World Cup here in Harris County and we're competing with other states in the United States, so they can choose one that suppresses the vote versus one that doesn't. Guess who they're going to pick? These businesses know that. We also have business leaders, important business leaders in Houston and Harris County that have called on the largest chamber of commerce to speak up against voter suppression, and they continue that fight. And I urge them, all leaders, all citizens and residents, but especially businesses, to join the fight now. Business leaders have the most influence over these legislators. They're uniquely positioned to stop this charade that tears down democracy and is based on a proven lie.
Okay. And the last question that you answered in Spanish about HPD,
I mentioned to him I've been focused all night on the voting bill and all day, so I'm afraid I don't have a comment on that bill right now.
okay, thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.